So let me tell you a story about this book. By now I have published on my channel more than 300 videos. In one of the videos I ask, hey, if you want a review of a particular book, please let me know. Because I thought that I had them all, or nearly all. And one of my subscribers said, hey, could you make a review of this? And I didn't have it. I didn't have it because I don't know how I missed it. It was in 2019. I missed this one. I'm sorry I missed it because this book, it's really a work of love. It's a work of history. The author, Igor Vartanovich, or Joff, he was in contact with Petrosian. He learned directly from Petrosian. He annotated with Petrosian. So clearly a beautiful book. However, is not only for black, like you would think, because the King's Indian is for black. He put also games where Petrosian was white against the King's Indian. So the work is really complete in a sense. And let me show the inside so you can see. Here you can see a picture of a young author with Petrosian in 1979. Okay, so that's important. The book is divided in different pawn formation. Okay, there are different tabias like the classical variation, the Samish system, the fianchetto variation, the Benoni, other systems, and so on. Now, the good and interesting part, apart all the games that are really well annotated, is at the end. I like this thing because for me it's kind of important, and let me show you here. These are practically the index of the opening lines. And why it's important? Because if you want to learn the King's Indian, here practically you have the tabia that you could play against a sparring partner or against a computer or in correspondence games. Okay, so this is all the tabia that you need to actually know. So it's kind of important. Okay. With that said, let me start to show you a game. From the beginning, I will try to show a couple of games per chapter, per system. Sorry guys, it's gonna be very long, because clearly this is a book with more than 400 pages, kind of very heavy, so you can see it. It's a beautiful book, but it's also a thick book, something you will study for more than a year, okay? Okay, like I told you, the author collected also games that Petrosian played with white. In this sense, the game number 1 of this collection is Petrosian playing as white. Why is showing you this? Because it's showing you also the evolution of the opening theory, and this is very interesting, I think, because it opens your eyes to understand why some moves were played and what they really thought about it in that time. Game number 1 was played in Moscow in 1949, so 4 years after World War II ended. It was the 17th USSR championship. Petrosian is white and is playing against Geller. This is the tabia of this classical variation: d4, knight f6, knight f3, g6, c4, bishop g7, knight c3, castle, e4, d6, bishop e2, e5, d5, knight b d7, castle, knight c5, knight d2, obviously because it was attacked twice, right? And e5. And now there is queen c2. So this is the tabia of this classical variation. Okay. Let's try to see what are the ingredients or what are the thing behind it. So we are nearly in 1950 and all the moves made up to now are theory, something that every grandmaster of that time would know. At this point you need to decide what would you do next as black. Okay? So what did Geller prepare for this game? Can you try to guess? Well, Geller played bishop h6. Now the problem is that the evaluation of this move, depending, because in the time there were no engines, depending on different players, really had a big difference in evaluation, like they were thinking it was bad even. Imagine that. So let's see what the author writes. The author says, using the knight's temporary stop on d2 to force the exchange of a dark square bishop. Okay? Today, such an interpretation of a King's Indian defense has already become standard and even basic, but in those days its evaluation was controversial. For example, the well-known theorist Peter Romanovsky, thinking that the g7 bishop, this bishop, had to defend the king, annotated this idea as rather dubious. And the game's commentator, Master Victor Guglitze, called it original but wrong. So can you imagine? Original but wrong. Now, who do you think is gonna win this game? Because original ideas, especially at the board, can bring our opponents into making mistakes, right? The game continues with knight b3, bishop takes c1, knight takes c5, a positional error, very uncommon for Petrosian. However, being young at the time, he probably had not yet mastered all the subtleties of his Stradermark opening. Bishop h6 immediately, obviously, because at this point you have a bishop pair. Imagine that. Imagine that. Knight d3. And what do you think is black going to play now? Because you must know that there is a pawn push in the King's Indian that is typical. It's very typical and you want to achieve it. Is the pawn f7 going to f5, right? So what did black play? Knight d7. The King's Indian bishop, after miraculously escaping death, soon start to retaliate for the disrespect. Okay, a3, f5, b4, knight f6, and here there is knight b2. The subpar exchange starts to bear fruit. White is denied the natural opportunity to reinforce the e4 square with a pawn, for example, f3, right? Why? Because if you play f3, boom. So you already understand that the problem of not having the dark square bishop it starts to become big. Okay, and so after this there is this, and the attack starts to become real on this side. So the plan of attacking on the queen side, it's slow, because for sure black will arrive fourth. Okay, let's go back. Alright, so we were, I think, in this position. Okay, so how did the game continue after knight b2? It's continue with boom, f takes e4, and white continue with c5. Here it says white's last active move in the game. Maybe it would have been better to risk, obviously, knight takes e4. But after knight takes e4, queen takes e4, bishop f5, knight f3, a continuation certainly not for the faint of heart. But there is nothing decisive for black. But you see, this is the thing. This book was written in 2019, maybe a little before, let's say, because it's a work that for sure the author took over many years, not something that happened overnight, definitely not a commercial work to teach you the King's Indian. This is a work of love, a work of understanding, deep understanding of this opening. So the author maybe had the chance to have an engine to confirm his evaluation, while in 1949 they didn't, and so obviously it's more difficult for them, right, than for us, that with just one click, hey, we know the truth, or what is thought the truth to be today thanks to Fritz or 19 or Stockfish 17 and so on. Okay, so in the game white played c5, after which there is a takes b4, a takes b4, rook takes a1. This is a kind of interesting exchange, because sometimes when you open the file you don't know if you want to give the control of the file back, but so we can learn also from this. Okay, rook takes a1, and finally bishop f5. And here it says that the rest of the game requires no explanation. So let's see what is the rest of the game to conclude this beginning preview of this beautiful book and the games in it. So white obviously continue with queen b3, e3, f3, obviously doesn't want to give black the control of the diagonals and the attack, but how do you stop it? e4, knight c4, e takes f3, bishop takes f3, knight g4, g3, queen f6, notice this, and notice how they are going to work on this, because at this point it becomes a problem. Bishop g2, bishop d3, controlling f1, notice the amount of pieces that are going on f1, h3, trying to create an escape, but this is here and is controlling it. Queen f2, king h1, and then after queen takes g3, Petrosian resigned. So this is a game that lasted 27 moves. I'm sure Petrosian was quite upset by the terrible result of this game. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will continue to show you games from different chapters with different tabia, so you can have a great review of this book that I tell you it's really covering it all, more than 400 pages, and there are something like 290 games by Petrosian, so it's really a great work. I hope you will enjoy it.